Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome everybody to MTN Outdoors. I'm once again your guide, Andy Curtis. And we're here awaiting the Little Blackfoot River just outside of Avon because in this week's episode, we're talking about fishing. Shocker, I know. Specifically winter fly fishing. And we're gonna take a trip up north to Craig and talk with the experts at the Headhunters Fly Shop about fishing the mighty Missouri River all 12 months of the year. Then we're gonna take a trip down south, leave Montana for just a little bit down to Wyoming, and see how this group of Ukrainian refugees is using skiing to feel a little more at home here in the United States. But first, before we get to any of that, avian flu has made its way into the headlines quite a bit here recently. And it just jumped species into one of the state's most iconic mammals. MTN's Sean Wells starts things off for us.
3 grizzly bears were euthanized after testing positive for avian influenza, the largest outbreak of the virus since 2015.
So this year is unique. Again, both in the geographical spread, but also in the ferociousness of the outbreaks.
Avian influenza is spreading rapidly across the country in both wild and domestic birds, including right here in Montana.
Now we have over 50 million birds affected, and it's probably the most consequential animal health disease outbreak in the country.
Montana Department of Livestock veterinarian Dr. Martin Zalewski says the virus has mutated to a highly pathogenic form, crossing over into different species.
We know there's just a lot of virus in the environment, and there has been for many months.
The virus has crossed over into mammals as 3 grizzly bears in Montana tested positive this fall after showing poor neurological issues, including disorientation and blindness.
They probably just found a food source, and they're, in the fall, they're trying to put on weight for the winter. And so they probably consumed birds that had died from the virus.
Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks veterinarian Dr. Jennifer Ramsey says skunks and foxes have also been found dead from the virus in Montana as it crosses into different mammals.
It's just one more thing, to deal with. And we don't have a good way to control it. It's a virus. There's not a treatment for it. Birds can die in places no one could ever recover them. So they're out there and they're available for scavengers.
Dr. Ramsey says the virus continues to spike in different areas across the state, months after the outbreak was first detected.
We were all hoping that it would be a more short-lived outbreak, but unfortunately it's dragging on. And we're seeing right now, some parts of the state are just seeing really high numbers of wild bird mortality.
Dr. Zalewski says epidemiologists are tracking the virus closely as it continues to evolve.
Because one of the reasons why we are why our response is fairly aggressive to detections of avian influenza is that we're trying to prevent another mutations that might be of greater public health concern.
In Kalispell, Sean Wells, MTN News.
And if you were driving by the state capitol on Tuesday and saw a lot of camouflage and hunter's orange, no, you weren't seeing things. It was the Elk Camp at the Capitol event, which brought together hunters and anglers groups along with outfitters and guides, all to talk to elected officials about outdoor and wildlife policy. Governor Greg Gianforte was there, along with legislators from both parties. And organizers say that in previous legislative sessions, there has been a lot of conflict over hunting and wildlife management bills. They hoped that this time around, by getting all the stakeholders together early, they could find that they all have a lot more in common than they previously thought.
Our goal at this session is to develop collaborative discussions on bills before they get to the committees, and we've already started doing that. And it's our hope that this will be a much more fun and interesting legislative session.
We've got a lot more information about the event up on our MTN family of websites or by checking out our Facebook page. And an in-person hunter education course is now open for registration in Great Falls. Now, there is no charge to attend this course, but advanced registration is required and is available online at fwp.mt.gov. Now, this course will be held between 7 and 9 o'clock p.m. on February 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 27th, 28th, and March 2nd at the Paris Gibson Education Center in Great Falls. Attendance at a field course on the morning of Saturday, March 4th is also required. To purchase or apply for a Montana hunting license, anyone born after January 1st, 1985 must complete a hunter education course issued by Montana, any other state, or any Canadian province. All right, speaking of education, we're going to try something a little new in this week's episode. I really want to see how well you know the great outdoors here in Montana. Here it is, the very first, hopefully not the last, MTN Outdoors trivia. So put those thinking caps on. This should be an easy one, a bit of a softball question. But which of these fish is native to the great state of Montana? Is it A, the bull trout, B, the brown trout, or C, the brook trout? Choose wisely, everyone, and we'll have your answer when we come back.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back, everybody, and pencils down. Before the break, we asked you our very first MTN Outdoors trivia question. And just in case you missed it, here it is one more time. Which of these three fish is a true Montana native? Is it A, the bull trout, B, the brown trout, or C, the brook trout? Now, if you answered A, the bull trout, congratulations, you know your Montana fish, and you can now throw around that bit of information to impress your friends. And speaking of friends helping friends is what this next story is all about. Now, I don't like to do this too often, but we're actually going to leave Montana for just a little bit, head down south over the border to Wyoming, and see how this group of Ukrainian refugees is finding some solace on the slopes.
Their journey to this mountain is winding.
This ski hill is actually, it's a beginner ski hill really, so a lot of people have learned how to ski out here that are part of the community. We have 4 generations of skiers out of the mountain right now.
Refugees find themselves making a new life on slopes a world away from their home.
Did you ski before you came here?
No, in Ukraine I don't have that experience, but here I'm just trying. I'm trying snowbike. That's cool.
Oh, you're trying to snowbike?
Yes, that's great. Yeah, really.
Galina owned multiple salons in Ukraine. Now she and her daughter Dasha settling in.
Do you like skiing?
Yeah. Here we just feel like at home. Why? Because it's quiet. A lot of kind people who want to help us. Really, it's important for us. And here, safety.
Galina got the job at Sleeping Giant through a businessman and friend from Cody, closely tied to Ukraine.
When I graduated from college, I went to Europe, I thought maybe for 6 months, and it ended up turning into about 20 years.
He met Yulia there. They've been splitting their time between Kyiv and Cody for several years. He bought the mountain several years ago to keep it open for Park County residents.
It's been a labor of love. This is our 3rd season, and we're learning a lot. But we're trying to make it fun. We try to make it a space for everybody.
He invests in multiple industries in Ukraine, and when bombs started falling...
It was a tough time. We were trying to get our employees and friends out of Ukraine. Men were unable to leave for the most part, but what we said was, look, if you want to get your families out, we're here, It was an emotional time.
They've sponsored 10 families to come to the Cody area through the State Department's United for Ukraine program and to safety, but things will never be the same.
We just see it even when we're talking to friends over there, right? Their world has changed so much, right? We had friends at the beginning of the war, writing their addresses and our addresses and phone numbers on their kids' chests with markers because they weren't sure if they were going to lose them at the border or whatnot, right? And I don't know, I don't know how you come back from all that.
He says he finds it therapeutic to ski. Sleeping Giant is offering free passes to anyone from Ukraine so they too can find some peace. Near Cody, I'm Augusta McDonald for MTN News.
All right, that was enough of Wyoming. Let's head back to Montana now and the other side of Yellowstone National Park, where gardeners taken their fair share of lumps recently, following that historic flooding we had in the summer. But now the road's back open, and they're really relying on a strong winter tourism season. MTN's John Shear has our story.
It's definitely been a slow, kind of rough winter.
Business is a little light.
The holidays were less busy.
Our winter bookings are down by about 40%.
We have a lot of wildlife in the Mammoth area this winter. I think part of it's because there's just not as many people around.
That's not great news for these Gardner business people. They need a robust winter to recoup the losses from last summer when flooding closed access to the park from their communities.
Everybody's done a really good job of being flexible and rolling with this because there's no playbook to what's happened here.
Because the wastewater system could not be repaired in time for the winter, the Mammoth Hotel behind me here is not taking guests this season. The first time that's happened in a long time. It's bad news for Xanterra, the company that runs this hotel, but not so bad news for hotels down in Gardner.
Well, surprisingly well, especially since Mammoth Hotel didn't open up, so that helps funnel a lot of the business down to us, so we're having as good of a winter as we can.
And guides do have some hope for the rest of the winter.
We're starting to see things pick up a little bit through the rest of January and February, and we have a few bookings in March.
So why are people not flooding back to the park now that this new road is open and access is easy?
This year, a lot of people were really confused about whether or not the road had reopened to the general public.
I think people are sort of starting to understand that. I think there's still a little confusion from some people, but yeah, the road is open. It's been open all winter.
Everybody got inundated with the news of the flood, the images of the roads washed away, but that same kind of attention has not been given to the creation of the new road.
But everyone is optimistic for the coming summer.
Advanced reservations for next summer are excellent. You know, we have strong interest in Yellowstone again. We expect visitation to be normal.
Next summer, our bookings are actually up a little bit from what they were this time last year.
The power of Yellowstone to draw people hasn't dissipated.
I'm expecting it to be back to normal and hopefully gangbusters come July and June, and I hope that businesses are surprised.
The winter season runs until mid-March. Superintendent Shawley says winter operations are in full swing, and McGarry tells us snow conditions are stellar. She says people who don't visit now are missing out. In Yellowstone National Park, John Shearer, MTN News.
Just because it's winter doesn't mean you have to hang up that fly rod just yet. For the hardy angler out there, right about now is just as good a time as any to get out, chase some trout, and have the river about all to yourself. A sight you don't see too often here on the Missouri, especially around the fishing mecca of Craig. Even when the temperatures drop, though, you won't be seeing Craig's mainstay fly shop, Headhunters, closing their doors for the season. Because if the water's flowing, it's time to fish.
Winter fly fishing and summer fly fishing are quite different. We're still obviously got the flies in the water, but the type of water we're fishing is much, much different. In the summer we're throwing grasshoppers at the bank and nymphs down the center. And in the winter we're just looking for a habitat or a climate where those fish are going to be. Their metabolism slow down, so they're in slower water, slower, deeper, more boring type water. So the water is the primary difference in fishing, executing fishing in the winter to summer.
And that water, especially near Craig, stays liquid pretty much year-round.
It has to be below zero for a number of days till we get slush up here in the Craig area, Craig or upriver to Holter Dam. Below mid-canyon and down on that low river, that absolutely can be frozen over. One of the things in the winter you have to be aware of is the safety. There can be floating shelf ice, slippery conditions getting to the river. You have to be dressed differently.
So if the river's flowing, you'll see those lights on at Headhunters.
Oh, our fly shop has full-time employees that work both summer and winter. To have a full-time summer business, you really need to have the backdrop or, the full-time winter business as well. There's administrative things. We're receiving products in all the time and putting those out on the shelf. There's some media to do. And then, the computer work just, of course, never stops. But people are calling and booking their reservations for the summer, not only for the lodging, but for the guiding as well.
Winter Trails Day is getting people on the snow to experience cross-country skiing for free.
What we're trying to do is promote the activity with people that are new to it and create a new following. introduce this sport to folks who've never tried it before. I think it's just another way to be able to be outside in the outdoors in the wintertime, do something that is enjoyable and fun, and it can be very much a fitness activity. I mean, the folks who live and travel to this area in the wintertime, this is a part of what you get. So if you live here in the winter and you don't have a way to enjoy being outside in all of what winter brings us, being a shut-in is no fun.
The Glacier Nordic Center offered free rentals and free trail passes to anyone who wanted to try their hand at cross-country skiing.
Yeah, we're out here enjoying the cross-country ski trails, and super grateful to the organization that's putting this on with free rentals and awesome coffee, and beautiful day out here to do some skiing.
4 beginner lesson classes were also available for people who needed a little extra help getting started, and the instructors enjoyed teaching people just as much as they enjoy skiing.
A love for an activity often brings you to that place, but sometimes I think the greatest joy comes in sharing what has been essentially a very good piece of my life with someone else. And sometimes that first novel experience somebody has, and that instant moment of first joy is just a remarkable experience. And being able to share that or hand that off with somebody that is brave enough to come out and try something new is really a cool experience.
Winter Trails Day is over for this year, but be on the lookout for the event next year.
Yay for cross-country skiing!
In Whitefish, Kiana Wilson, MTN News.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Claws. Sharp. Deadly. Very, very useful. Almost every animal on planet Earth has some form of claws or nails, and every one of them uses those tools for very different reasons. MTN's Tanner Saul gets to the point for us.
It's almost like a Swiss Army knife type of tool. It can do a lot of things.
Pretty much every animal you see has claws or nails, and wildlife use these as tools to greatly help out their day-to-day life. For instance, cheetahs use their claws like cleats to gain traction when sprinting after an animal. Some marsupials, like kangaroos, have claws only used as an undeveloped embryo to climb into their mother's pouch that are later shed and new ones are grown to help with hopping or digging. These amazing abilities of claws start with just 2 different parts.
One is the core, which is the bony ungual part, and the other is the keratin sheath, and so then together they form the whole claw structure.
Keratin is the same thing fingernails, hair, and feathers are made out of. Dr. Tracy Thompson has focused his PhD research on functional morphology, which is the study of the shape of structures to try and determine or understand the function of those structures.
I think of it kind of like tools. If you go into a tool closet, you've got shovels and picks and screwdrivers and all these tools, and you can kind of guess or infer what the purpose of each of those tools is from their shape.
What Thompson has done for his PhD dissertation was create a method so we can look at claws and accurately describe what they are used for.
It allows us to then have a framework in which to infer and understand fossil organisms, which we can't directly observe anymore.
Since we can't witness the behavior of prehistoric animals, he has to assess how modern animals use their claws and infer what prehistoric wildlife used them for. His research allows them to correctly classify known animals by 95%.
Which means that we can take a fossil organism now and insert them into that analysis and have 95% confidence that we're correctly interpreting what that fossil organism is doing with its claws.
This research can be quite tricky. In modern animals, we can see the claw sheath easily, that part that goes over the bone. But fossils usually don't have the sheath and just the bone, meaning Thompson has to carefully piece together what a sheath would be like on a fossilized bone.
And so trying to take this structure and use it to interpret what this is doing, it's apples to oranges, right? The claw with a sheath might look or appear very different than a claw without the sheath.
Thompson also had to tackle another critical issue in the biological realm. That being, researchers often put wildlife in some sort of category based on where they live or what they do in their environment.
They would classify organisms as eating other things, living in trees, or running on the ground.
But these categories are not functions. It's really a lifestyle.
A cat and a hawk are both predatory, but they catch their prey in very different ways when it comes to the claw usage.
A bird of prey that catches, let's say, a rabbit wraps their whole foot and claws around the rabbit to grasp it, in a very similar fashion of a bird grabbing a branch.
So instead of a tree bird and a predatory bird, those should be the same category because the claws are being used in the exact same way to grip a branch or to grip a rabbit.
Although there is mostly overlap between mammals and birds, Thompson found there is more variability in claw usage for birds. And the main reason is because they can fly.
Because the birds are specializing the hind limb claws because they can fly, they can really hone in on a very specific, very targeted shape to do a very specific thing. Whereas mammals, they have to run and climb, or they have to run and catch prey.
He had to reinvent the way scientists categorize species based on their claw function to get this to work. And it was all with a specific goal in mind.
My goal all along was really to provide a foundation for people to then use and apply to fossils. I'm a paleontologist at heart, and I want to be able to understand what past organisms are doing.
Thompson researched this for years and hopes future researchers will build upon this using it as a foundation.
And so that for me is really valuable, to be able to contribute something to the body of knowledge for humanity that can be of use.
In Missoula, Tanner Saw, MTN News.
Well, that should just about do it for us here this week at MTN Outdoors, everybody. Thank you, as always, for spending some time here with me. And please remember, keep those photos coming. If you're outside and doing something legal, I want to see it. Send those pictures to andy.curtis@ktvh.com. I don't care what you're doing. Skiing, snowshoeing, snowboarding, ice fishing, anything. All of it. I want to see it. As long as it's outside and you're enjoying the great outdoors, send it my way and you could see yourself at the end of a future episode. Just like these folks, it's time for this week's MTN Outdoors Brag Board. And the first picture we have here is from Bob in Helena. This one was snapped from his kitchen window of a little nighttime valley fog. And please send in any more photos of anything unusual. Thanks to everybody who sent in those photos, and please keep them coming. It's easy and the best way for you to get on television. And until next week, everyone, stay safe, stay warm, and I'll see you out there.